What is up, all my bee people? Greg the Bee Guy here, and tonight we're going to be talking about 4 different subjects, 4 different topics that are really going to be important for beginner beekeepers or people that are thinking about getting into the beekeeping hobby. As always on this channel, we're going to go from number 4 to number 1, and we're going to try to make this video a little bit shorter so that everybody can make it to number 1, because number 1 is the most important thing that you can do as a beginner beekeeper or somebody that wants to get into the hobby. So guys, if you're ready, grab yourself a pen and some paper and get ready to write some stuff down. And if you are a former Marine like myself, go get yourself some crayons and be ready to write. Remember guys, do not eat the crayons. They're not good for you. Trust me, I know. Greg the Bee Guy, let's get into this. So guys, what are the 4 keywords or 4 subjects that we can present to you in this video that are going to help you as a beginner beekeeper or somebody that may down the road want to get into the beekeeping hobby? Now, you're going to be slammed with a lot of information from a lot of different places when you first get into beekeeping. There's so much stuff out there, and it sometimes is overwhelming. Well, we broke this down into 4 simple kind of like key words that are going to help you to be successful long term. And that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to set you up as a beginner beekeeper for long-term success. Some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the mistakes that other beekeepers have made, we've boiled it down, and here we go with number 4. Guys, if you like videos like this, right down below you here, right down there, hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment. I really enjoy reading all the comments and responding to all the comments, and give me some examples of some things that you might do to avoid getting stung in your apiary. So without further ado, LFG. So guys, number 4 is accessibility. So when you are thinking about setting up your apiary or your first colony, you want to make sure that it is accessible, okay? So, you know, how are you going to get there? Are you going to have to drive there with a truck? Are you going to use a tractor? Do you have a side-by-side? Because let me tell you, I'm 54 years old and I'm kind of in decent shape. And when it's 90 degrees outside and you're in a bee suit, the worst thing that you can do, or the most annoying thing that you're going to have, is having to hike 30 or 40 or 50 yards or 100 yards down to where your apiary is. So make sure that when you are planning your apiary, you have accessibility in mind. Because if you're a younger guy or you're somebody that's in real good shape and you think, you know what, if I got to walk down there every time, it gets old real fast. So when you're hauling honey supers down there or hauling full honey supers back or whatever, it is a very, very annoying. So get yourself a piece of paper, draw out your yard, right? Draw out your yard and look and see where some accessible places are that you're not going to have. You know, you don't want to go up a hill all the time or down a hill all the time. You want to have something that's going to be easy to get to. And especially like when we take hives to other properties. So we have people that call us and they'll say, hey, could I get a hive on my property? It's called being a pollinator. So you're taking your hive to somebody else's property so that it can pollinate their crops or whatever, their vegetable garden, whatever it is. The first question we ask them is, how do we access the site? Because we're not going to have to walk half a mile to get to that hive. That is the very first thing. So guys, number 4, accessibility. Guys, so number 3 on our list is proximity. Now, when we're thinking about proximity and we're putting our plan together, our action plan together for our apiary, what are some of the things that we want to think about when it comes to proximity? Well, we want to make sure that our hive is not in a situation where it's going to become either a danger to us or a danger to people around us. And at first you might say, well, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. My neighbor doesn't care. He already told me, like, he doesn't care. That's all fine and dandy, but most of the time what ends up happening, trust me from experience, is if something happens, if your neighbor gets stung or their neighbor's kids get stung, or the dog gets, whatever it is, it's going to be your bee's fault, even if it isn't. So to give you an example, if your neighbor's walking through their yard with a pair of sandals on and they get stung on the foot because they stepped on a bee, it's going to be your bees. Okay, so you want to limit that exposure as much as you can. Now, you can never really eliminate it, but you can limit it. So what I would normally suggest is at least, at minimum, 30 feet. Now, I drew you a little picture here. If you can see, so there's you, right? There's you, and there's your beehive, and just say this is your neighbor's property line, and this is your neighbor's property line. You want to make sure you're a minimum. See, see how happy that guy is. Now, if he's getting stung, he's not going to be as happy, but we want to be a minimum of 30 feet, and that really is like the minimum. I would probably like to see more like 50 feet distance around, because and even for yourself, if you think about yourself, and we know as beekeepers, 90% of the time our hives are fine and they're friendly and we can go up into our apiary and not get stung at all, no matter what. But there are days and times and nights that the bees are just not happy. And you know, you don't want to have to go out on your back porch and get stung because your hive might not be happy that day. So make sure you're thinking about yourself too. Put your hive in a place where it's not going to bother you and it's not going to bother your neighbors. And on the flip side of that, think about how bad as you would feel as a beekeeper if, say, you know, the neighbor's kid or something, they're playing football and the football went into your yard, or the baseball went into your yard and it went next to your hive, and the kid went over there and got stung up maybe 2, 3, 4 times because he was in the proximity of the hive. Think how bad you would feel as a beekeeper, and you may, as a matter of fact, throw up your hands and be like, okay, like, yep, like I'm done with this. Like, somebody come take my bees because I can't risk there being something catastrophic. And the last thing on that, and I hate to use the word Karen, but there are a lot of Karens out there now, and you just don't want to get into a situation where you have a confrontation because some Karen thought that your bees were stinging their kids or stinging their pet or whatever. So guys, number 3, proximity. Make sure you are a safe distance away from anybody around you. Here we go. So guys, number 2. What is number 2? So number 2 is kind of an easier one. It's not really that in-depth. Number 2 is longevity. So setting up the apiary, think about what it's going to be like here in 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Is this hive going to be able to stay here for 5, 6, 7, or 10 years? Am I going to have to move this hive multiple times? And again, this is a little bit different if you have a lot of property and it's off in the back somewhere and you don't really have to worry about it. But when you're in a situation where, let's just say your yard borders a housing plan or something that you're just putting in, and 2 years from now there's going to be a house sitting there, you may want to consider a different place for your hive, because what we don't want to end up doing is we don't want to end up having to move this hive, or this apiary for that matter, multiple times in the next couple years. Because there's kind of a rule that beekeepers use, and it's a real kind of a little catchy phrase. It's less than 3 feet or more than 3 miles. And what that means is, if you're going to move an established colony, now we're not talking about swarms, we're talking about an established colony. If you're going to move an established colony, you have to either move it less than 3 feet or more than 3 miles, or you're going to have some issues. Major issues, probably not, but you're going to have some minor issues. You're going to lose some bees, you know, stuff's going to happen. And you know, anytime you move your colony, you're going to risk them absconding. You're going to risk killing your queen just because you have to take it somewhere. There's a lot of risks in moving your hive or your colony, especially for us, I'll say amateur beekeepers, right? If you're a commercial beekeeper, you're used to that. You'll throw 1,000 hives on a truck and take it out there and whatever, and you're fine. You've done this for a living. When you're an amateur beekeeper and you've never moved a hive before, it's an experience. It's something that you have to learn how to do. So make sure when you're planning your apiary that you think about longevity. And once you do that, you're going to be pretty good to go if you can at least go 5 years out. because you might think, well, man, 5 years, that's a lot of time. Well, I started this 6 years ago. I can't even believe that it's been 6 years. So 5 years minimum, and then also plan that out a little bit further, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, okay? So that is number 2, longevity. And guys, again, if you've made it this far, like, subscribe, share, really helps me out. Comment, maybe throw something in there of what you would say to a new beekeeper getting into this hobby. And next, we are going to talk about the most important one. So hang around. We're coming with you right now. So guys, we made it to number 1. That is right. The most important thing that you can do as a beginner beekeeper or somebody that is thinking about getting into the beekeeping hobby. All right. And it's very important to understand that this is kind of the stepping stone or the first place that you need to start as a beginner beekeeper. But we put it number 1 because it is the most important thing that you can do. And that is accountability. So your key word here is accountability. Now, there's going to be 3 different entities, let's say, that you're going to have to be, well, actually 4. There's going to be 4 different entities that you are going to have to be held accountable for, okay? So the A, let's say A, is going to be your local municipality. All right, so as a residential beekeeper or somebody that's just getting into the beekeeping trade, the best thing that you can do is to call your local municipal building and make sure that you are allowed to have bees on your property. Now, some of you guys might be out there going like, whoa, like, Greg, like, wait a minute, like, isn't it better to beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission? Because what if they say no and I want to have bees on my property? I get where you're coming from, but it's just not worth it. When you're dealing with, let's be honest, guys. Now, again, in most situations, bees are harmless and they're great, and you can pet them and you can treat them like a dog. Well, no, you really can't. But in most situations, bees are going to be fine and they're not going to cause any problems. But if you have a situation where your bees do cause a problem, especially further south, and when you get into Texas and you get into California and some of them western states where you can kind of really get into major problems, you want to make sure that you're covered. So if you call the municipal building and they say, no, you can't have bees, then it's going to kind of be on you if you want to take that risk to put them there anyway. I personally would not take that risk because if something happened with my bees, now I'm not protected from them. So if you call the municipality and they say, yeah, you're fine, you could go ahead and put a beehive on your property, and then somebody complains or again, somebody gets stung or whatever it is, you can always go to them and say, see, I called them. They said I was fine. Take it up with them. So that's the first thing, guys, is call your local municipal building or town hall or whatever you got to call and make sure that you are in compliance with your beehive on your property. B, or the second one in that, I don't want to keep throwing numbers at you. Let's say B. You need to be responsible to your state. Now, here in southwestern Pennsylvania, we have to be inspected from the state once a year. All of our hives, we got about 48 up there now and another 10. So we have to have each one of those hives inspected every year by a certified apiary inspector. Now, that might sound really scary to you, but it's really not. As a matter of fact, our local apiary inspector here in southwestern Pennsylvania is a great gal. She's so easy to deal with. She's very informative. She'll walk you through, take as much time as she needs, and she'll show you some of the things in those hives that are problems and some things that are really good. Okay, this hive's looking really good. Here's your queen, etc., etc. Now, if you have 1 or 2 hives, it's even easier because then she can kind of spend a little bit more time, especially if you're a beginner. And especially if you're a beginner and you need to have your hive inspected. So I'm not going to drop her name in this because it kind of gets a little bit weird when you're dealing with state employees and whatnot. But if you are anywhere in southwestern Pennsylvania and you don't have your colonies inspected, send me a private message and I will be able to get you in contact with her. But the most important thing you can do is to have your hives inspected by a certified inspector. And what that's going to do, again, is cover your behind, your butt, for if something happens, or if you have a major situation and you're not inspected, then you're going to be, suffering some, pretty steep consequences when it comes to problems out there with bees and all the diseases that bees can get and bees can spread. So cover your butt and get your hives inspected. It doesn't cost a lot. It's very easy. And again, it's very informative as a new beekeeper. You learn so much from your bee inspector. At least we do. Now, you might have a bee inspector in your area that is just like, yeah, you know what, I ain't got time to deal with you. Your hive looks fine. I'll see you later. Ours is not like that. So hopefully you'll get one like that. But if you don't have your hives inspected, please go get your hives inspected. So guys, the third thing that you need to be held accountable to is your bees themselves. Now, what I'm talking about there is certain situations are just unavoidable. Bees will be bees. And so, you're going to have hives die. You're going to have hives leave. You're going to do things. You're going to roll a queen once in a while. Certain things happen that all beekeepers go through that you just can't avoid, or you can avoid, but it just happens. That's normal stuff in the beekeeping hobby that you're going to have to contend with. What I'm talking about when it comes to being held accountable to your bees is if you make mistakes, the same mistake over and over and over and over again, and you kill bees over and over and over again for the same mistake. At that point, maybe it is time to think about another hobby, or there are certain situations where you might not have the time to deal with your hive or hives. You might not have the money. You might not have the resources. You may not have just the ability. Maybe something happens in your life or whatever it is, but you have to understand that these are living creatures that need to be taken care of. And we actually had a guy that left a comment in one of my videos that this is animal husbandry. And what that means is it's kind of like a farm animal. It's kind of like having a cow or a horse or chickens or whatever it is. You have to be able to take care of them and give them the best opportunity to survive and thrive. And that makes it good for all of us. So when you're thinking about being held accountable, make sure you're thinking about that whenever you're doing it. Am I going to be able to do this, not full time, but close to a second job to take care of these bees? And if the answer is no, then maybe you kind of need to just worry about going down to your local marketplace and buying some local raw honey if that's what you're doing this for. Or if you have a garden and you're buying bees because you want pollination of your garden, call your local beekeeper. We'll be happy to bring out a hive to your property and leave it there for you. And we'll give you some of the honey that comes out of it. And you can get pollination of your crops or your garden or your flower bed or whatever it is. So that is, the third entity that you need to be held accountable to is your bees. And the fourth one really is the entire beekeeping community. That is more of an abstract thought than an actual, well, they're going to hold you accountable. But it's kind of like you want to make sure that you give beekeepers the best name that you can. So you don't want to be doing things that are going to be putting beekeepers all over the place in a bad light. And that's why number 4, number 3, number 2, and number 1, if you do all these things, you are less likely to have an issue. And somebody that doesn't know anything about beekeeping will say, oh, see, yeah, I told you, those gosh darn beekeepers, they're out there screwing everything up and messing everything up. So we want to make sure that we minimize that. So make sure, again, I don't want to say this too many times, but just understand that you as a beekeeper carry a name, or you carry a title with you that a lot of people all over the world carry. And if you're screwing up and your neighbors are getting mad at you and the township's mad at you, it just gives everybody else a bad name. So that fourth entity that you need to be held accountable to is the beekeeping community itself. And that's why I kind of started doing these videos. And again, I've always said, guys, I'm not a professional beekeeper. I mean, I'm not a master beekeeper. I should say we do kind of run a professional apiary where we're more of a commercial apiary where we concentrate on honey and wax and stuff like that. There are other beekeepers that concentrate on selling bees. We do a little bit of that, but not as much of that as the honey and stuff like that. Guys, so that's the video for today. 4 simple keywords, 4 simple things that you can kind of remember as you're getting into the beekeeping hobby, or you are also a beginner beekeeper. All right, so easy video. I hope you guys made it all this way. If you did, remember, like, comment, share, help me out. It really makes this go a little bit easier for me whenever I want to make these great videos for you guys. And if I'm not doing a good job, put that in the comments too and say, man, you just, this isn't it. This isn't your thing. Do something else. It's like beekeeping. Some people can, some people can't. And you know, YouTube's kind of the same way. So that's it, guys. Greg the Bee Guy signing off. I love talking to you guys. And as always, LFG, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great night.